All right, y'all, get ready because this shit's about to get real messy. I'm Michael, 35 years old, and I've been dealing with some seriously stuff with my wife Jessica lately. Where do I even start? It all went down around 8 years ago when I first met this smoking hot chick, Jessica, through some mutual friends. She had the whole package. Crazy good looks, brains for days, and just this killer personality that matched so perfectly with mine right off the bat. We were literally two peas in the same damn pod, sharing all the same interests, values, dreams for the future and shit. I was hooked hard as hell. After dating for like a year, I finally grew some balls and proposed to her fine ass. Jessica said yes, and our wedding day was straight out of a freaking fairy tale. We got our first place together, adopted the cutest damn puppy, and really settled into that whole married life groove. Those were some honestly amazing times. Those first couple years of being newlyweds were absolute fire. We couldn't keep our hands off each other, if you know what I mean. Asterisk, wink, wink, asterisk. The sex was scorching hot on the regular, like multiple times a week at least. And I'm not just talking boring missionary shit either. This girl was a straight-up freak in the sheets. We'd try all kinds of kinky new positions and toys to keep things exciting. Sometimes we'd even get it on outside the bedroom for a little added thrill, if you catch my drift. Those were honestly the raunchiest but best years of my life sexually. On top of our insane sex life, Jessica and I were just so compatible in every way. We'd go on spontaneous weekend road trips, try out new hole-in-the-wall restaurants, just have a blast joined at the hip no matter what we did. We were already talking about making babies because our relationship seemed that rock solid at the time. But then shit just started hitting the fan out of nowhere. Like a light switching off, Jessica started getting this cold, distant, dismissive vibe with me almost overnight, pulling away emotionally and physically hard. She was practically surgically attached to her damn phone 24/7, texting away at all hours of the night, always claiming it was just work shit whenever I called her out on it. Yeah, likely f***ing story. Our sex life, which used to be smoking hot, turned ice cold fast. She started making up every lame excuse in the book to avoid getting intimate. She had a headache, her period. She was too tired from work, blah, blah, blah. At one point, we went like 2 straight months without having sex, which was unheard of for us. At first, I figured she was just going through a rough patch at her job or dealing with some external stress that was distracting her, you know? We all go through little ruts here and there. But those weeks of her checked-out behavior turned into months of her just straight-up shutting me out emotionally and physically. I had this gut-wrenching feeling that something was seriously off between us that I just couldn't shake no matter how much I tried brushing it off as no big deal. Whenever I tried to bring up the growing distance with her and address the elephant in the room, she'd gaslight the absolute out of me and shut down completely. She'd tell me I was being batshit insane and paranoid for no reason, that I was just overreacting and there was nothing wrong with our relationship at all. She'd blame it all on me and my insecurity issues. But I could feel our whole marriage slowly crumbling and crashing down around us bit by bit with each passing day of her negligence. That's when the shady, sketchy shit started going down hard, and I really caught on to her shady behavior. Her phone would constantly be blowing up with texts in the middle of the night from this new work friend Dave she had recently met. At first, I didn't think much of it, but the texts just kept rolling in at ridiculous hours. Like 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, that kind of thing. She'd panic and quickly silence her phone whenever I entered the room too. Everything seemed very hush-hush and suspicious surrounding this Dave guy. So there I was, picking up on all these little shady breadcrumbs Jessica was leaving behind regarding this mysterious Dave guy from work. The constant late-night texts blowing up her phone, her acting all hush-hush and panicky whenever I came around while they were messaging. It was setting off all kinds of alarms in my head, but I didn't want to face the ugly truth just yet. Maybe I really was just being paranoid like she kept insisting. Maybe I did have some deep-rooted insecurity issues that were causing me to overcook this whole thing. I didn't want to risk wrongfully accusing my wife of anything without rock-solid proof and just push her away even further. So for a few more excruciating weeks, I tried my damnedest to suppress that gut-wrenching feeling that something wasn't right in our marriage. but the signs of her shady behavior just kept getting more and more impossible to ignore. Jessica started coming home way later and later from work, offering up lame excuses about having to stay extra hours to wrap up projects and meetings that never seemed to end. But her cover stories never quite added up. She'd claim she was pulling an all-nighter at the office, but then I'd notice her car was parked in its usual spot when I arrived home. On top of her constantly dubious whereabouts, the endless draft without any sexual intimacy between us persisted. Months upon months without so much as a goddamn peck on the lips at that point. Anytime I tried to initiate anything even remotely physical, she'd recoil from my touch like a scared rabbit and quickly make up another lame excuse. She had a migraine, cramps from her period, was too exhausted from long work hours, blah blah blah. The same tired bullshit on a continuous loop. Our emotional connection was pretty much non-existent too at this stage. We stopped going on any date nights to keep the romance alive, stopped having any meaningful conversations about our hopes, dreams, or thoughts in general, really. We spent more time acting like emotionally detached roommates than a loving married couple. Then one fateful night, the hard, ugly truth I had been dreading finally smacked me in the face harder than a ton of bricks. I'll never be able to erase the mortifying events of that Thursday evening from my memory. It was around 10 p.m., and Jessica still wasn't home yet from her supposed late team meeting at work. I had zoned out on the couch, absent-mindedly watching TV, and waiting for her sorry ass to finally walk through that door like she always did. Suddenly, a loud buzzing from her phone startled me out of my daze. I checked the notification out of curiosity and saw a preview from some raunchy text that read, "Can't wait to see you later, baby. I need you inside me again." My heart practically stopped beating in that moment. With burning anger and shaky hands, I opened up her phone without even thinking twice. That's when I saw the motherlode. A huge thread of raunchy sexts, nudes, videos, you name it from this Dave douchebag, all explicitly detailing the nasty sexual acts they'd been carrying out together behind my back and making plans for more raunchy rendezvous. It was like a goddamn bomb went off inside me. All the repressed anger, sadness, betrayal, disgust, it all suddenly came erupting out of me in hurricane-force waves of anguish. My head was spinning as I paced around the living room, hands trembling uncontrollably. I could feel oceans of tears starting to well up but refusing to let them fall. That's when Jessica's dumb ass finally rolled through the front door a little past midnight, reeking of some other dude's cologne that I didn't recognize. She startled a bit when she saw me wide awake and looking like I was about to explode. Before she could even open her mouth, I completely unleashed all the built-up torment and anguish I had been internalizing for months. "You lying, cheating whore!" I screamed at the top of my lungs, causing Jessica to practically jump out of her skin in startlement. "How could you do this to me? To us? Our whole goddamn marriage?" She looked caught completely off guard for a split second, her eyes widening in panic before the defenses quickly went up. What are you talking about, Michael?" she sputtered, trying to play dumb. "Why are you yelling at me like that all of a sudden?" I could barely speak through the waves of white-hot rage coursing through me in that moment. With a trembling hand, I forcefully shoved her phone right in her face to display the X-rated sexts, nude photos, and raunchy videos from this Dave douchebag she'd been carrying on with. "Oh, that," she said coldly, dropping the innocent act now that I had discovered her dirty secret. "I can explain." "Explain what exactly?" I cut her off, unable to hold back anymore. "How you've been sneaking around behind my back for God knows how long, screaming like a $2 whore while some other guy drilled you, sending him endless streams of naked pictures and porn videos. Just how long has this sordid affair been going on for, Jess?" I was seething, imagining all the awful visuals of her and Dave going at it like a couple of rabid animals. Each sickening thought punched me in the gut a little harder. How many times did you let him put his dirty, filthy dick inside you while I was sitting here at home, oblivious and thinking everything was perfectly fine between us? I choked out, feeling the warm sting of tears forming in my eyes. The ugly truth was becoming more and more clear with each question I fired off. My voice was quivering as I struggled to maintain my composure. but the tears began freely streaming down my cheeks against my will. Throughout my anguished rantings, Jessica's face remained frighteningly stoic and remorseless as she formulated her piss-poor excuse. "Okay, yes," she finally snapped. "I slept with Dave a few times, but you have to understand, Michael, it didn't mean anything. It was just physical." She went full victim mode. "You've been so cold and distant lately, always caught up with work and putting it before me and our marriage. I was lonely and feeling so neglected, and Dave was there for me, giving me the attention and affection that you weren't." "Are you fucking kidding me right now?" I thought, feeling another bubbling surge of rage mixed with disbelief. "So that makes it okay to cheat on me? To lie and sneak around for how long exactly? Weeks? Months on end?" I was practically seeing red at this point, my voice rising into guttural screams again. "And then you tried to make me think I was the crazy one for sensing something wasn't right between us. You made me feel like a paranoid asshole for picking up on your shady behavior." She actually had the audacity to roll her eyes at me, solidifying herself as a grade A sociopathic bitch in my mind. "You are being crazy, Michael," Jessica stated matter-of-factly with zero remorse. "It was seriously just a few lapses in judgment here and there. Dave doesn't mean anything emotional, I promise. He was just a physical fling to fill a void, that's all." I was dumbstruck, completely unable to process the level of gaslighting and rationalization my own wife was attempting. How could this selfish, vile human even try to downplay and justify her despicable betrayal like that? "You disgust me!" I spat through gritted teeth, feeling repulsed to my core. "If it was really just a meaningless fling-fling, then why did you work so hard to cover it up and make me doubt my own suspicions? Why did you mourn and lie straight to my face, over and over again?" My brain was working a million miles a minute, connecting all the dots. This wasn't just one single indiscretion she was confessing to. This pattern of behavior had to go way deeper than just her affair with Dave. "How many other flings have you had behind my back over the years, Jess? This has to go way deeper than just this one loser you've been sleeping with." She stayed silent, her eyes suddenly drifting guiltily down towards the floor. And that's when I knew. This wasn't Jessica's first rodeo of carrying on sordid affairs and disrespecting our marriage vows. The painful realization that my wife had potentially been serially cheating on me for who knows how long caused me to double over, making me feel literally sick to my stomach. I puked my goddamn guts out right there in the entryway of our living room, hot vial and acid burning my throat. As I sat there on the floor puking and sobbing uncontrollably, I finally looked up at Jessica with a mixture of heartbreak and burning rage-filled fury. "Get out!" I stated flatly, in a low, gravelly tone, while struggling to swallow back more vomit. "Get the out of my house right now while I still have some self-control left in me to not completely lose my goddamn mind. We're done, Jess. Over." In the aftermath of that horrific confrontation, I felt utterly devastated in more ways than I could have ever imagined. It was like someone had ripped my still-beating heart straight out of my chest and crushed it into a bloody pulp right before my eyes. The initial shock of discovering Jessica's affair left me numb for a few days. I operated in a hazy fog, the details of her betrayal playing on a continuous loop in my mind, reliving the agony of seeing those sickening sexts and videos with Dave over and over again, rewinding the memory of the cruel, cavalier way she tried to justify her actions and blame it all on me, wondering just how many other men she may have secretly been with behind my back over the years. Once the numbness finally wore off, the anger set in hard. A blind, red-hot fury that consumed me entirely and caused me to lash out in ways I never imagined I was capable of. I punched holes through our walls until my knuckles were bruised, broken, and bloodied messes. I shattered every memento, every meaningful object that held any sentimental value to our relationship. Dishes, picture frames, you name it. The pain of her betrayal was so excruciating that I wanted to completely erase every last remnant of Jessica from my life. I'd go through these uncontrollable screaming fits where I'd howl at the top of my lungs in releasing all the tumultuous hurt, anger, and bitterness coursing through my veins. Just primal sounds of agony that had neighbors calling the cops out of concern more than once. I'm sure everyone on our block thought I was a raging, abusive psychopath based on the demonic noises coming from inside our house. But then that blinding anger would often give way to moments of crippling sadness and heartbreak. I'd curl up in a ball wherever I happened to be, the bathroom floor, our empty bedroom, or the kitchen, and let the oceans of tears flow freely in heaving, breathless sobs, crying so hard that I'd make myself sick and have horrific dry heaves, lacking the energy or willpower to even make it to the toilet sometimes. Those depressive lows made me feel so small, so pathetic, so empty inside. Like my very sense of self-worth had been shattered into a million indestructible pieces that could never be put back together again. I'd wallow in my own misery, letting the darkness completely consume me for days on end without eating or sleeping. Just laying there feeling utterly worthless and pondering how I had failed so miserably as a husband for Jessica to so callously turn to other men for fulfillment. Was I not a good enough lover? Not attentive or affectionate enough towards the end of our relationship? Did my constant dedication to work and ambition to provide for us make me an inadequate, negligent partner over time? Maybe if I had been more present, more assertive about getting to the root of her unhappiness earlier on, things wouldn't have reached such a disastrous breaking point. The endless barrage of self-deprecating, blame-deflecting thoughts was enough to send me into dangerous inward spiral after inward spiral. I'd fantasize about just ending the psychological torment, about driving my car off the highway and into the nearest concrete barrier at full speed, or drown myself in the bathtub and just slip into a final, peaceful unconscious forever. In my very darkest moments, I can't deny that I flirted with those morbid impulses begrudgingly, but something deep down, whether it was self-preservation, pride, or just simple cowardice, always pulled me back from that tragically permanent solution. As anguishing as the pain Jessica had inflicted upon me was, I didn't have it in me to give her the satisfaction of being the reason I gave up on life altogether. With what little energy I could muster, I'd eventually pull myself back up from those depressive lows, only for the cycle to inevitably start all over again when another fresh wave of sadness, hurt, or anger would come crashing down. It was like I was trapped in a never-ending purgatory of despair, always grappling through the different stages of trauma and heartbreak simultaneously. After what felt like an eternity trapped in that emotional purgatory of despair and agony, I slowly started to regain some semblance of clarity and perspective on my situation with Jessica. The unrelenting storm of sadness, anger, and self-loathing began giving way to moments of calm, allowing me flashes of rational thinking. It was during one of those lucid moments that I had a defining epiphany. I could choose to remain forever stuck in this toxic cycle of misery, or I could find the strength to pull myself out of it and work on trying to move forward. Jessica's atrocious betrayal would always leave permanent scars, but it didn't have to keep me shackled as an emotional hostage forever. With that mindset shift, I made the conscious decision that regaining my sense of self-worth and independence had to be the top priority. Jessica had already callously stripped me of my identity as a husband and life partner. I couldn't allow her to rob me of my dignity and self-respect, too. It was time to purge the cancer she had become fully from my life. The very next day, I contacted a divorce lawyer to begin proceedings to legally and financially separate myself from Jessica. I didn't care about trying to make efforts to salvage the dumpster fire of our marriage or hear any more of her blame-shifting justifications. The trust, intimacy, and faith that are the bedrock of any healthy relationship were completely obliterated beyond repair thanks to her years of lies and infidelity. Once the divorce paperwork was filed, it felt like a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders. A huge first step towards reclaiming my independence and shedding the toxicity Jessica had burdened me with. I could breathe a little easier knowing I was actively dismantling the life I had been trapped in and working towards building a fresh start. Of course, the road ahead was still very long and arduous. Jessica immediately went full scorched earth mode once she received the divorce filings, putting up a massive fight over things like asset division, living arrangements, you name it. We had to go through painful court battles and many bitter, venomous exchanges over the following year as we negotiated the untangling of our previously intertwined lives. But I remained steadfastly resolved. keeping my eye on the light at the end of the tunnel, a future free of the misery Jessica had inflicted upon me. I leaned on my incredible support system of family and friends to keep me grounded throughout all the ugliness of the divorce proceedings. Without their unconditional love and encouragement, I may have very well crumbled under the pressure of Jessica's relentless onslaught. Finally, after what felt like an endless gauntlet of courtroom battles, everything was officially finalized. The house was sold, and I was able to walk away with enough assets to start over financially. Most importantly, I had successfully severed my legal bounds to the woman who destroyed my world. I was, at last, an independent man yet again. With the divorce behind me, I could feel the remaining shackles of despair slowly releasing their grip. There were certainly still struggles with processing the magnitude of Jessica's betrayal and dealing with the emotional scars she inflicted. Anger and feelings of worthlessness would occasionally resurface, and I had to work through them with therapy. But for the first time in over a year, I could look towards the future with optimism instead of darkness. I decided to embrace my newfound singlehood and rediscover who I was as an individual, outside of the context of a committed relationship. I reconnected with old friends, picked up new hobbies, and really invested quality time into exploring self-care and healing. The life I had constructed with Jessica was gone forever, but I realized that was an opportunity for a total rebirth and reinvention of my identity. Throughout it all, I reminded myself that I was no longer shackled by the actions of my unfaithful ex-wife. The only thing holding me back was myself at this point. It was an arduous journey, but I was determined to face this new chapter with hope, courage, and above all else, self-love. Looking back on the entire gut-wrenching ordeal with Jessica and how it completely upended my world, I've gained a lot of hard-earned perspective and wisdom that I wish I could go back and tell my former self. First and foremost, I've learned that no matter how crushed and defeated you may feel after experiencing a life-altering betrayal, you can't allow yourself to become a permanent victim. Jessica's unfaithfulness was an unspeakable violation of our marriage vows and trust. No doubt about that. But at the end of the day, her being a terrible life partner didn't give me an excuse to throw away my own self-worth and human dignity. I let myself wallow in dangerous levels of self-loathing, misery, and even fleeting thoughts of self-harm in the aftermath. And while it was perfectly valid to feel devastated and enraged by her actions, I can't continue to make excuses for the periods where I completely stopped taking care of myself, physically and mentally. I have to own the fact that I temporarily lost my way and my will to live during those rock-bottom moments. But I've also learned that it's never too late to reclaim your power and start standing tall again with self-love and resilience as your armor. It took months of emotional turbulence before I could start letting go of Jessica's grip on my psyche. However, once I made the conscious choice to take control of my healing process and focus on rebuilding my independence, it was like breathing fresh air into my soul again. My divorce inevitably got very ugly and draining as Jessica opted for a scorched earth legal battle instead of dissolving our marriage amicably. There were so many times I wanted to just give up and let her emotionally bludgeon me into submission. But with the strength of my amazing support system behind me, I remained steadfast in reclaiming my self-worth and shedding her toxicity for good. In the end, I emerged from the rubble of my failed marriage as a wiser, humbler, and more self-actualized man. Going through such an emotionally catastrophic betrayal was horrific, but I've reclaimed my identity outside of being a husband or partner. I'm rediscovering who I am as an individual and regaining my zest for life and all it has to offer. To anyone out there who has gone through a similar experience with infidelity, my advice would be this: allow yourself to feel the anger, sadness, and pain in their full intensity. Those emotions are valid and need to be processed. But then make a cognizant choice to not let those feelings control or define you. The person who wronged you may have temporarily broken you, but you cannot give them the power to keep you shattered permanently. Dig deep and reconnect with your self-worth and self-love, however long it takes. Purge the toxic people from your life by any means necessary. Lean on your support system's strength when your own feels depleted. Seek counseling if you need professional guidance. And most importantly, resist the temptation to seek harmful vices or punish yourself further. The betrayal itself is punishment enough for anyone to endure. You have every right to feel angry, damaged, and lost after being betrayed so profoundly. But you also have the power to pick up those shattered pieces of your heart and soul to rebuild an even stronger, more resilient version of yourself. It's the greatest victory you can achieve against those who did you wrong. My journey is still ongoing, but I'm finally in a place where I can look at the future with hope, optimism, and self-acceptance rather than fear or despair. I know there will always be lingering scars from the emotional torture I endured. However, I refuse to let Jessica's transgressions keep leaving permanent shackles on my spirit. I'm a faithful, loving person who didn't deserve her malicious betrayal, and I'll be damned if I stay a broken victim forever because of it. It's time to keep focusing on treasuring myself and what truly lies ahead. I've confronted the worst, but survived the nightmare. Now, it's time to wake up and embrace the rest of my life.